for a special treat now. Our next author is an African-American poet, most often associated with the Black Arts Movement. She was born in Birmingham. She's authored over a dozen books of poetry as well as plays and children's books. She has taught as a professor at 8 universities and has lectured at over 500 college campuses across the United States. She was the first to create and teach a course based on black women in literature in the United States. She is currently a poet in residence at Temple University and has won, well, if we listed all the awards she's won, we would be here until past closing time. Please welcome Sonia Sanchez.
Hello, how are you? Thank you very much for hanging around into the last reading today, this afternoon. How long do I read? 20 minutes, it says? And then Q&A, right? Okay. It's good coming back to Birmingham. The first time I came back to Birmingham, my dad was still alive, and just move that so I could see a little bit. I'm so tall. And I came back to do a reading, actually, at the University of Alabama. And the 2 African-American students picked me up at that time. I think this would be in the 80s, late 80s. And they were there at the University of Alabama, which was like, you know, amazement. But they also weren't getting money, a lot of money, any money to do this, you know, to do their work. So they asked me would I speak about it. And I always love students, how brazen they are, you know, how they can just ask you to do anything and then you do it, of course. And I did, and they were happy about it. They did get some more money because you and I know if you've dealt with the university, you cannot make it through unless you have some money to help you get through. And I also said something to the president. I said, it's, you know, I returned here to a place where, you know, black folks could not come, and it's always such a joy to see progress happen. And so on that note, I want to, and I belong to an AME Zion church here, Methodist church here. My grandmother was the head deaconess in the church, and I did a piece to her. My dad came to my house in a place called Philadelphia and had a picture of my grandmother. The first time I had seen my grandmother in a picture, I remembered her. She died when I was 6. I remember her from my 1-year-old to 6-year-old memory, which is always not correct, you know. Memory is always not correct. You think it is because they sent me, I'm doing my memoir now, and I asked for a picture of my grandmother, and I was sent this large picture of my grandmother, and I looked at it, and I called my cousin and said, I think you made a mistake. And they said, how? I said, well, this doesn't look like my grandmother. And I said, in fact, she looks like a Native American. And they said, yeah, she used to wear her hair in this long braid all the time. But he was this woman with high cheekbones, right, with a braid down the back of her neck. And it said on the back, Nay, Ontario. It didn't say born in Birmingham, Alabama. And then that's when I began to I had to back up, and evidently, you know, she must have been part of that group that left, you know, her family and went to Canada. And then evidently her husband, the man she married from the railroad, brought her to a place called Birmingham. But I only knew her from Birmingham, so it was really something. It made me go back and begin to rework something. But my dad brought me this picture of her, and this picture was a picture of her all in white. And I always remember her in white from the church. You know, this other picture, she was not in white. She was almost like a frontier woman, you know, really, you know, big and very, very strong. And that night, after my dad had gone to bed, I wrote this piece called Mama, Dear Mama. It is Christmas Eve, and the year is passing away with callous feet. My father, your son, and I decorate the night with words, sit ceremoniously in human song, watch our blue sapphire words eclipse the night. We have come to this simplicity from afar. He stirs, pulls from his pocket a faded picture of you, black woman, sitting in frigid peace All of your biography preserved in your face, and my eyes draw up short as she says her name was Elizabeth, but we used to call her Lizzie. And I hold your picture in my hands, but I know your name by heart. It's Mama. I hold you in my hands and let time pass over my face. Let my baby be. She ain't like the others. She rough. She'll stumble on gentleness later on. Oh, Mama, gentleness ain't never been no stranger to my genes, but I did like the roughness of running and swallowing the wind, diving in rivers I could barely swim, jumping from second-story windows into a saving backyard bush. I did love you for loving me so hard until I slid inside your veins and sold your blood to an uncrucified shore. And I remember Saturday afternoons at our house, the old Sister Dicknesses sitting in sacred pain, black cadavers burning with lost aromas. And I crawled behind the couch and listened to breaths I had never breathed, tasted their enormous martyrdom, lives spent on so many things, heard their laughter as Sister Smith's latest performance in church, her purse sailing towards Brother Thomas's head again. And I hugged the laughter around my knees, draped it round my shoulder like a Spanish shawl. And history began once again. I received it and let it circulate in my blood. I learned on those Saturday afternoons about women rooted in themselves, raising themselves in dark America, discharging their pain without ever stopping. I learned about women fighting men back when they hit them. Don't never let no men hit you more than once, girl. I learned about women's waking up their men in the night with pounds of hot grease, and the compromises reached after the smell of hot grease had penetrated their sleepy brains. I learned about loose women walking their abandoned walk down front in church, crossing their legs instead of their hands to God, and I crept into my eyes alone with my daydreams of being woman, adult, powerful, loving, like them, allowing nobody to rule me if I didn't want to be. And when they left, when those old bodies had gathered up their sovereign smells, after they had kissed and packed up beans snapped and cakes cooked and laughter bagged, after they had called out their last goodbyes, I crawled out of my place, surveyed the room, then walked over to the couch where some had sat for hours and bent my head and smelled their evening smells. I screamed out loud, "Ooh-wee, ain't that stinky?" And I laughed laughter from 1,000 corridors. And you turned, Mama, closed the door, chased me round the room until I crawled into a corner where your large body could not reach me. But your laughter pierced the little alcove where I sat laughing at the night, and your humming sprinkled my small space, your humming about your Jesus, and how one day he was going to take you home. Because you died when I was 6, Mama, I never laughed like that again. Because you died without warning, Mama, my sister and I moved from family to stepmother to friend of the family. I never felt your warmth again. But I knew corners and alcoves and closets where I was pushed when some mad woman went out of control, where I sat for days while some woman raved in rhymes about unwanted children and work and not enough money or love. And I set out my childhood with stutters and poems gathered in my head like some winter storm. And the poems erased the stutters and pain. And the words loved me, and I loved them in return. My first real poem was about you, Mama, and death. My first real poem recited an alphabet of spit, splattering a white bus driver's face after he tried to push cousin Lucille off a bus, and she left Birmingham under the cover of darkness forever. My first real poem was about your child's white arms holding me up against death. My life flows from you, Mama. My style comes from a long line of Louises who picked me up in the night to keep me from wetting the bed. A long line of Sarahs who fed me and my sister and 14 other children from water with soups and beans and a lot of imagination.